Now I can't hear.
Audio check. Can you guys hear this out in Zoom land? Go ahead and give your mic a try over there. Let's see.
So anything, Commissioner Williams?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, good. I don't see is
Rick is really hard to hear.
Council member Williams, so I see. And I don't see Council member Avila. She may not be here this afternoon. And then Commissioner Geisler. The other commissioners there, Jess. So, do we have a quorum? I do see. Okay. Yep. Oh yeah, that's right. I got to look up over here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
You process. You're good on your quorum.
I'm looking strictly online. All right, so established a quorum. And first order of business is approval of the agenda. And so I would ask for a motion.
I move to approve the agenda. Commissioner Williams.
Do I hear a second?
This is Wayne Williams. I second.
I know, everybody turn on your mic up here. If you would, go ahead. I've got a second. And so we move for a voice vote. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed, state no. I hear none. The motion is approved. I should have called for some discussion before we approved it. So even though we approved it without discussion. So we'll move forward to the next, and I'll just let everybody know on the agenda for today, there's 12 items. And it's going to be a while. We have several things that we're going to discuss in there. So but we will hopefully be done before dinner time. So move forward. All right, the next piece on the agenda is the public. I'd like to open up public comment period for items not on the agenda, and I'll look over to Jessica to see if we have anyone online that wants to make comments on non-agenda items. How about in our audience? We do have an audience today. So just raise your hand if you do have public comment. Okay, I see none.
Randy,
Yes.
this Wayne. Is there a camera view of what's going on in the boardroom? I see the PPACG, PPRTA, and it's this beautiful backdrop, but I don't see.
So let's see if we can lower the camera. I'm afraid you're going to get a picture of my face when you do that.
Okay, that's better.
All right. It's our first time back in person, so we'll work through all the fun things.
But I'm getting, there's actually 4 pictures it's showing, and is that, I presume that's intentional.
I'm hearing that it is.
Thanks.
Okay, the next agenda item is our resolution of appreciations for our 3 individuals this afternoon. And I do have the resolutions, and the way we're going to work this afternoon is I'm going to read each individual resolution, and we'll do the motion and approval for each individual recognition with discussion before the vote. And we'll have those gentlemen come forward and make their presentations. And I'm very honored. We'll start out with, I'm very honored to have David Geisler with us this afternoon. And I would like to read his resolution. But the first thing I wanted to say is Dave is a very good friend of mine, and I've gotten to know him over the last year really well. And he's just an outstanding individual, both not only as a human being, but in his work here on the city council and obviously here in the PPRTA. And I just can't say enough good things about David. So David, with that said, I'm gonna read your resolution and then you can come up. Resolution by the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors acknowledging appreciation to the City of Colorado Springs Director David Geisler, June 9th, 2021. Whereas the City of Colorado Springs is a member government of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, and whereas David Geisler served as the council member of the City of Colorado Springs from April 2017 until April 2021, and served on the Pikes Peak RTA board from June of 2017 until April of 2021, including as the vice chair of the Pikes Peak RTA board in 2018 and 2020, as well as the Pikes Peak RTA board chair in 2019. And whereas City of Colorado Springs Director David Geisler has served as citizens of the City of Colorado Springs of the Pikes Peak region with distinction. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors wishes to acknowledge their deepest gratitude to the City of Colorado Springs Director David Geisler for his commitment to regional transportation planning and projects, for his wise counsel, and for his dedication to the advancement of the transportation project of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. Resolved, approved, and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority this 9th day of June, 2021. Colorado Springs, Colorado, signed, Randy Allen's chair. David, please go forward. Thank you, brother.
Yay!
Put on the hat.
No, I don't put on the hat. I want to thank all you guys on the board, all you guys who have supported the board. Beverly is
Hello.
Bev is amazing.
Hey,
Rick
Ashley,
is
how are you?
amazing. Mike Chavez.
I'm good.
Travis, all in all the commissioners. I really wasn't going to say anything, and then Brian, just before we were talking, he was asking me about my role at City Council and here. And one of the things I appreciate, and he brought it up. I said, "Can I quote him?" He says, "No, but you can quote me," quoting H.L. Mencken, which is that for every single problem, there is an easy, direct, simple solution that is invariably wrong. And what I appreciate about City Council, what I appreciate about, oh, Jennifer, I missed you too. What I appreciate about the board is that we got in the mess, we got in the muck, we recognized that there is no easy solution that is a solution. And so I appreciate all you guys and ladies for entering into the difficulty that is necessary with running an organization like this and running a city. So thank you. And it looks like Travis is.
Yeah. While Travis is coming up, I jumped ahead of myself a little bit. I do need to ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
Mr. Chair, I would move,
Wait,
I know it's too late. I already given it to you.
this is Wayne Williams, I would move approval.
And second,
Holly Williams, second.
we go
And,
discussion now.
Now some discussion, Randy, and there's actually an amendment which needs to be in there because David served as chair in 2021 as well.
wow, for a little bit.
I will make sure it's corrected in the document and signed and given to you in that correct document.
Thank you.
Okay, Travis Easton, Public Works Director for the city. I would just like to give Dave, on behalf of the Public Works Department, a small token of our appreciation for the way that he thoughtfully handled all of those difficult and muddy issues. And also the way that he carried himself and represented the Pikes Peak RTA through the years. So just again, our appreciation and thank you to you, Dave.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful trophy of a shovel, which I'm not sure what it's digging out. And a hard hat. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, other discussion?
Okay.
Good. All right, again, I just wanted to repeat that Dave's just an outstanding person, and I look forward to working with him again in the future. So with that said, I'll bring the motion to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. There are none, motion carries. All right, we worked through that one. Now we'll work through the next one. And our next appreciation is going to the town of Green Mountain Falls. We're going to recognize Tyler Stevens. So let us get through the motion and everything, and then we'll bring that. A resolution by the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors acknowledging appreciation to town of Green Mountain Falls Director Tyler Stevens, June 9th, 2021. Whereas the town of Green Mountain Falls is a member of government of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, and whereas Tyler Stevens served as the mayor or a trustee of the town of Green Mountain Falls from January 2005 until April 7th, 2020. And whereas town of Green Mountain Falls Director Tyler Stevens has served the citizens of the town of Green Mountain Falls and the Pikes Peak region with distinction. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors wishes to acknowledge their deepest gratitude to town of Green Mountain Falls Director Tyler Stevens for its commitment to regional transportation planning and projects, for its wise counsel, and for its dedication to the advancement of the transportation projects of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. Resolved, approved, and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority this 9th day of June 2021 at Colorado Springs, Colorado, signed Randy Elms, Chair, Board of Directors. All right, with that said, I would like to propose a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Twain, I'll second.
Okay, a motion has been approved and seconded. We're open up for discussion for Tyler Stevens. All right.
Hey, Tyler, you're the best.
All right. With that said, and we can have a few more words. It's seconded, and with that discussion, it's now for a vote to approve. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
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 All opposed? None? This motion has been adopted. And Tyler, yay! You're up, Tyler. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I really appreciate being
Absolutely.
able to do the hat. I couldn't get Dave to put his hat on. Can I get you to put your hat?
Absolutely. Been only
He's
waiting a few
Dave,
years for that.
Yeah, and here's your
Excellent.
resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be up here and have this recognition. I'm waiting quite a few years to get my hard hat, so it's wonderful to see that finally. I think that this is a unique institution and that it's wonderful to see government done right. It's small, it's skinny, it's creating local solutions to local problems, and we're doing it the right way here. And it's very unique for a small town like Green Mountain Falls to be able to participate and actually be able to collect taxes from our own residents outside of our own jurisdiction and put that back to regional projects which affect all of us. So I thank you for the regional cooperation and thank you all for your hard work and the continued excellence of the RTA. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, in our third resolution this afternoon for, let's see, we got Mr. Smith, Mr. Turner Smith, so we'll be reading his resolution now. A resolution by the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors acknowledging appreciation to town of Rama Director Turner Smith, June 9th, 2021. Whereas the town of Rama is a member government of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. And whereas the town of Rama Director Turner Smith served as town of Rama trustee from 2016 until April 7th, 2020, when he served as alternate board director from 2016 until April 7th, 2020. And whereas town of Rama Director Turner Smith has served as the citizens of the town of Rama and the Pikes Peak region with distinction. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors wishes to acknowledge their deepest gratitude to the town of Rama Director Turner Smith for his commitment to regional transportation planning and projects, for his wise counsel, and for its dedication to the advancement of the transportation projects of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. Resolved, approved, and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority this 9th day of June, 2021. Colorado Springs, Colorado, signed Randy Elms, Chair, Board of Directors. Mr. Smith, please come on up.
We're gonna vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead again.
Yeah.
Very good. Keep me in order. So with that resolution, I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution.
I, Dennis Carpenter, Mayor Rama, approve this.
Thank you. Thank you. very much.
Second, John Graham.
And I hear a second. So we have a motion and a second. Open for discussion.
I would like to say something. This is Holly Williams. For quite a while, I was honored to sit by, you know, our wonderful representative from Rama, Turner Smith. And I just wanted to say, he was always had good advice. He was always thoughtful in his presentations. I missed him when he went off the board. And so it's just as fun to have Dennis here, but thank you very much, Turner, for all of your leadership and guidance.
All right. Thank you so much. And with that discussion, we will now take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There are none. The resolution has been adopted and passed. All right, Mr. Smith. All right. Yay, Rama.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to see your hat on, sir.
You want to see that?
Yes, sir.
It's a little loose. Holly, thank you for your kind words. And the people in this room taught me a lot, more than what I perhaps brought to this board or the other boards that I served on, was what I took away. Serving here is an education. And the people like Rick and others that are working so hard to help guide us in, over decades, they really are the pillars of these boards, and they deserve recognition as well. And I really appreciate what they do and the staff and everything as well, because without them, we wouldn't be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, our next agenda item is item number 5, approval of the minutes from the May 12, 2021 special meeting. I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move approval of the minutes, John Graham.
I hear a motion to approve. Do I get a second?
Dennis Carpenter, Mayor Rama approves it.
Mayor Raymond to approve the second.
Yes.
Open for discussion. Any discussion on the previous minutes? I don't hear any, so we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of our May meeting? Vote by saying aye.
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 All opposed? No? There are none. This has been adopted and approved, and the minutes have been approved. The next item of agenda is item number 6, presentation of the FY 2020 audit. Let's see. Who's up for-
That's me.
that's
Okay,
Lynn, right?
Kyle Logan.
Kyle Logan.
Yeah.
Kyle,
So I'm-
the other.
I'm Kyle Logan, the owner of Logan and Associates, the RTA's audit firm. And so I'm here today to present the results of our audit of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority's 12/31/2020 financial statements. And so our process, first of all, it's nice to be in person. So last year, I know we were all did this Zoom, so it's actually had to put an entire suit on. So, but anyway, so our audit process, is composed of several different components, and one thing we do, a big part of it is we pick samples of checks and cash disbursements to make sure that the money that is being spent by the RTA has proper approvals, is being properly reported in the financial statements. And part of that, we make sure that the expenditures, if they're capital related, that they are being spent on projects that were included in the 2 ballot issues. And we also make sure that there is separation between whether it's transportation cost or maintenance cost or capital cost, to make sure that they're going into the proper accounts. And so we also send third-party confirmations out primarily to the banks and financial institutions to verify that the cash and investment balances that they report is what's being reported in the financial statements of the RTA. We also confirm all the sales tax revenues with the state, and even verify the transit revenues that are collected and paid by the city. And then we perform some detailed testing of certain account balances, comparing 2020 with 2019, and picking Beverly's brain and Rick's brain if why changes may have happened. And so after we do all that, that gives us a level of comfort to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And so all the numbers and footnote disclosures in this document are responsibility of the RTA's management. Our responsibility is to audit them and issue an opinion. And so following the table of contents is the independent auditor's report, a 2-page report. And the most important paragraph in that report is at the top of page B, the opinions paragraph. And so for the year ended December 31st, 2020, the Pikes Peak RTA received an unmodified opinion. And what that means in layman's terms, that means it's a clean opinion. What that tells you as a board, that tells you that all the financial statements and footnote disclosures in this document are materially correct and fairly stated at December 31st, 2020. And just to go through some highlights following the independent auditor's report, we have the management's discussion and analysis, which is primarily a kind of a written narrative over the past year of significant highlights, comparing 2020 with 2019. Then following the MD&A are the basic financial statements, which are primarily pages 1 through 11. And the page 1 is a statement of net position, or primarily your balance sheet. So that's like a snapshot picture at December 31st of all the assets, all the liabilities or claims against those assets, and the net position or net worth of the RTA. And so at December 31st, you had total assets of about 216 million. That's about a 29 million increase over prior year, or about a 16%. Of that, cash and investments represents about 194 million. Again, which is about a $28 million increase over prior year. Your accounts receivable, which is primarily the sales taxes collected by the state and remitted to the RTA, was 22 million, which is about a 6% over last year. And then your liabilities, total liabilities are, all your liabilities are in accounts payable. So what the RTA owes to vendors and contractors, that's 16 million, about a $2.1 million increase over last year. And then finally, your total net position or net worth is 199.9 million. Again, which increased by 16% or 27 million, which is primarily your net income that we will see on the next page. The majority of that net position obviously is restricted just due to the nature of the RTA. And, you know, it's restricted for future capital projects, future maintenance, and future transit projects. So anyway, the majority of that money is tied to a specific category. Okay. So following page 1 is page 2, statement of activities. This is really your income statement. And so it starts out with your total expenses of 98.7 million, which is a slight increase of 1.3 million over last year. And of that, it's broken down. You have capital improvements of 39.5 million. And as I've mentioned in prior years, you know, this fluctuates from year to year, depending on where the projects are at in the timeline. And so we actually had about a $7.4 million decrease from 2019 because some of the projects were completed in 2019. Your transportation, 4.1 million, that's about 8.7 million down. Well, we all kind of know why that is, because of COVID. You know, the transit services weren't running as for a period of time there, and then your ridership was down. Okay, so your cost to run that would also decreased. We also indicate there the I-25 gap contribution of the 6.4 million. This is the last payment at this point for the commitment that the RTA had made to that project. Maintenance activities about 15 million, or increased about 43% over last year. And again, it's just a timing issue of when these projects are being done. Primarily, you know, the biggest piece of these projects are made up by the city and also the county. And then your total revenues, 125.8 million, $6 million increase over last year. The majority of that, 121 million, is sales and use taxes, which was a 9.4% or 9.4 million or 8% increase over last year. And you know, the one of the main reasons of that is the state finally got caught up with all the online, going back and collecting all the online taxes from online sales. And also it's kind of twofold. You know, with COVID, a lot of people were at home and purchasing online. So you had a kind of a two-tiered impact on your sales tax revenues. Your investment income took a big hit, about 1.5 million. That's about 2.2 million less. Well, when everything happened with the pandemic, interest rates dropped, and you just couldn't find any institutions with good interest rates. So hopefully, as time goes, that will bump back up. And then the transit revenues kind of correlates with the decrease in the transit expenses, 2.5 million total, about a $1.2 million decrease, which is about 32%. So, you know, definitely an impact there. Leaving your net income or change in net position of 27.2 million. Again, that's about a 16% increase in your ending net position or equity. So following on pages 3 and 4, similar statements, only a fund type presentation. Really, there is no difference between pages 1 and 2 and pages 3 and 4, but the accounting standards ask that we separate those out. So that's why they are there. And then following pages 5 through 11, footnotes. Again, accounting standards require certain information to be included in the financial statements to support in detail certain disclosures in the financial statements. And one thing we did add paragraph at the very end called uncertainties due to COVID. Again, we don't know what the effects are, you know, as of this time on your financial numbers for 2021. So the accounting standard recommended that we put something in there because it is uncertain what the impact will be. Then on pages 12 and 13, this is your required supplementary information, which is your budget. And so the reason it's presented here is because state statute requires all local government entities to adopt a budget each year, which you do that in December for the following year. And we always verify to make sure that the expenditures compared to what was expected to be spent are within the budget or below what was expected. And so no issues there. So that kind of covers the financial statements. The other document in your packet is the management letter. And so our professional standards require us to communicate certain things to you, the governing board of the RTA. And that's the purpose of this letter. So it tells me our responsibility as your auditor. We talk about if there were any audit adjustments. Well, this year we didn't propose any audit adjustments. So what that tells you as a board, that tells you that the numbers you have seen throughout the years are the numbers that are in this final audited document. Okay. And again, we didn't have any issues while performing the audit. If we had, you would have heard from me before today. So that's always a good thing. What that also tells you is that the policies and procedures that have been put in place by this board and previous boards are being followed by staff, and it provides for good, sound financial reporting of the RTA. And finally, I want to thank Beverly and Rick for their hard work. You know, they have the hard part of pulling all the information together for us to come in, look at, and dig through. So we really appreciate their help because it makes your audit go very smooth and timely. Any questions?
Any questions out there in Team Land, Zoom Team Land?
Everybody still awake?
Sounds good.
I,
Thank you.
I would like to say that Kyle, thank you, number one, for the presentation on that. From my own point of view of looking at the audit, it looks to me like not only did the PPRTA do a wonderful job this last year, especially through the pandemic, but we're set up for the future. That's what it looks like to me, just coming into this. So thank you very much for all your hard work. This is something obviously we don't vote on this, so it's accepted. If there's no any other discussion, I'll let it go over for just another few seconds if anybody has any questions, comments, or discussion. All right, let's thank Kyle.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, on the agenda, there is a motion, it's a requested motion to accept the audit.
So, okay, let's do that then. I do then call for a motion to accept the audit.
Holly Williams, I move to accept the audit.
I'll second John Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been a motion and a second. Discussion, further discussion? There is none. We'll vote, voice vote by approving the motion. Either one approve the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There's none. The motion has been accepted. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, next item, number 7 on the agenda. Citizens Advisory Committee Monthly Report by Jim Godfrey.
Good afternoon, Chair, Mr. Chair and Board. Jim Godfrey.
Welcome to in-person training.
Oh, it's nice. It's nice to see people face to face. So we had our meeting this past Wednesday. I'll be brief. The public comments, we had none. We reviewed the financials, the ones that not the ones, we did not have the ones you just saw. So good report from Good News Bev over there. City of Colorado Springs contracts, the city presented 7 contracts for approval. We were discussed, there were no outstanding issues, and the CAC makes a recommendation to approve the city's request. We heard that from transit, good news, things are picking back up. The El Paso County also had some contracts and discussion, and we make a recommendation to approve their request for contract. Another item that's later on your agenda is the PPRTA 3 matrix, the continued discussion we had on that. Our whole meeting went about 3.5 hours on Wednesday. A lot of input from the staff and discussion, and so I'll get into details of that if need be during that presentation rather than now, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair. And then item number 8, the city is found a potential grant for the Fontanero overpass replacement, and discussion on that, and they're requesting a letter of support. We support that request of a letter of support to apply for this grant, and Gail will cover that later in the presentation. Other than that, I'm open for any questions.
Any questions from our audience?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
And this is also a requested motion to accept the CAC report.
So the motion, do I hear a motion to accept the Citizens Advisory Report?
I'll move acceptance of the CAC report. John Graham.
Thank you, Mayor.
Holly Williams, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. We're open for discussion. I hear no discussion. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. I hear none. The motion has been accepted. Thank you. Next up, item 8 is our financial reports from Ms. Bev.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So for the April receipts for sales and use tax, we received 12,130,000. And so it was 2,688,000 above the monthly budget, or 28.5%. So far, we're 9,272,000 above the amended budget. So doing quite well, obviously. And then on the second page, compared to last April, we are 2.9 million ahead of last April for the month, or 31.7%. And then the remaining pages are the financial report, the income statement, basically, that put the sales and use tax numbers in that format. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't think anyone out there.
This is an information item,
Right.
so,
So no, yes, no requirement.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, item number 9 on the agenda, 2021 capital maintenance and public transportation contract. 9A is City of Colorado Springs.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Gail Servant with the City of Colorado Springs. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can.
Yes.
All right, just wanted to check. I was too close to the mic last week, so let me know if I need to make an adjustment. We are pleased, the City of Colorado Springs is pleased to bring 7 contracts for the board's approval today. I'm going to hit a high level of the 7 contracts being presented, and there are detailed memorandums with each one. The first one is actually a deduction change order for the Cascade over Cheyenne Run Bridge replacement. But we'll have $160,000 returning to PPRTA and over $80,000 returned to the city general fund. And the reason for this, we're able to do this reduction. There was some federal funding involved with this project. We're able to maximize the use of that federal funding, and be able to provide returns back to both RTA and the city of Colorado Springs. The reason why you're seeing this deductive change order, because it does exceed the 15% of the total contract value. The city's next contract is for the Tut Boulevard Extension. This is an A-list project. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's to the east of, it sounds like everyone is. This project was actually completed in two phases, or going to be completed in two phases. The first one was done in 2016. And the reason why we weren't able to do the second phase at that time is there was a real estate issue with the property that's north of where it currently ends, just north of Dublin Boulevard. We've since come up with what we feel like is the best solution to resolve that land issue. And we want to proceed with a sole source contract with Classic Engineering to complete the design work for that second phase. The reason why we're going back to Classic Engineering is because they actually completed the work back in 2016 for the first phase, and they were at least a 60% level on the second phase. So to really maximize the use of our funds, it made sense to go back to that same engineering firm.
I have a question. Bill.
Yes, sir.
On the sole, when I hear sole sourcing, were there any requirements to?
Yes, so when we have a sole source, we have to follow the city's procurement regulations, and we have to demonstrate that it's in the city's best interest. And we provide a sole source justification memo that goes to the city's procurement office and gets their approval when we go through and do that. The next two contracts I will talk about together, they are two maintenance on-call contracts for crack seal. One will be going to Seal Coat and the other will be going to Elite Surface. Both these contracts are going to have an initial value of $0 with a potential total aggregate between all the crack seal contracts of $750,000 available based on the available appropriations and budget for those contracts, and they will be issued as task orders moving forward. The fifth contract for consideration for the board is where the city is seeking the board's concurrence or approval to basically leverage the buying power, or leverage the contract pricing that the state of Colorado Department of Transportation has received for traffic signal equipment. That CDOT went through a competitive process to select a vendor. In this case, it is AM Signal LLC, and they have a bulk pricing discounts for those within CDOT and any other jurisdictions within the state that want to piggyback on it is really the term. We intend to use $500,000 split between both maintenance and capital money over this next year for those purchases. The sixth contract is a change order for the South Academy Boulevard reconstruction for Bijou, from Bijou Street to Airport Road. That is to pick up some additional utility investigation and land acquisition activities. And then we actually have a small portion of that that will be billed towards the Fountain and Kirby Parkway portion for some additional bridge design work that was needed. The total request for that change order is $278,310. And last but not least is the Pikes Peak Greenway improvements. This memo may look slightly different than what you've seen in the past because this has been kind of a complex funded project over the years, and there's a maximum amount of funding for PPRTA that's been authorized for use on these types of activities. Not only we provide the change order history as what's been done to date, but also what change order 6 is today, which is actually currently a deductive change order of $15,000. So that would be returning to PPRTA. I will caution you that will be another change order coming, that there will be some use of PPRTA funds those remaining in our cap, but just to kind of give you a high level view. The other thing you'll see that's new that you may not have seen previously in the past is kind of a summary. And this is actually on page 4 of that particular memo, I'm sorry, page 3 of that particular memo, but a summary of the different sources of funding and the value of those sources that make up that contract. So when you see that $13.8 million contract, understand that the PPRTA portion of that is less than $1.4 million. So that is the city's presentation on a high level of our 7 contracts for the board's consideration, and we are available for questions.
You don't have questions now before we make the motion? And we'll go into discussion. All right, I'm asking for a motion to approve the City of Colorado Springs contracts.
I'll move approval. John Graham.
Thank you again, Mayor.
Holly Williams, second.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a motion and a second. Open for discussion. With no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. I hear none. The motion to approve the contracts has been approved.
Thank
All
you.
right, the next on the agenda is with El Paso County. I think Jennifer, yes, Jennifer. Thank you. Welcome to all of us in person.
We are so happy to see some people in person today. Jennifer Irvin. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Board of Directors, Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County Engineer. Today, we just have one contract for your consideration. It is our first contract for the Mace Ridge Parkway Improvements Project. And that is per your attached memo and supporting documents. We have a map in there that is located in the south eastern portion of El Paso County. And it is the section of Mace Ridge Parkway that extends between Powers Boulevard and Mark Shuffle Road. So we are requesting approval for an initial contract with Wilson and Company for civil engineering design services for the preliminary and final design of the next 2 lanes of that roadway and intersection improvements at either side. And this also includes a bridge design over Jimmy Camp Creek. And so we're requesting your approval for a contract today with Wilson and Company for approximately $800,000. And thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the contract for El Paso County.
Dennis Carpenter, I approve this.
Thank you, Mayor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second John Graham.
Thank you also, Mayor. I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the contract for El Paso County, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. We have none. The motion has carried and is approved. Thank you so much. All right, we're moving along. We're up to, wow, we're in agenda number 10. 10A is information, and we have the City of Colorado Springs Transit Services monthly update.
Good afternoon. Craig Blewett, Transit Services Manager with the City of Colorado Springs.
Good afternoon, Chris. Good to see you in person.
Likewise, good to see you all as well. So our this is our monthly report, and the report is in your packet. A couple things to highlight. From the local fixed route bus system, our ridership is up 13% compared to April of 2020. So we are continuing our recovery there. We are now allowing 100% capacity in the buses. So that was with the relaxation of the COVID requirements. However, per federal TSA requirements, we are still requiring a mask to board and ride buses. On the next page with our ADA. Yes, sure.
Is that because of federal CDC requirements?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Just like airlines, it applies to public transportation as well. Then on the next page, our ADA Metro Mobility Service saw a big increase there that was almost quadrupled their ridership from April of the previous year. So obviously that service is starting to come back. The page following after that, our taxi choice option, not a whole lot of, we did resume resume the taxi choice option starting in March. Haven't had a lot of takers yet, but that is an option that's available to our customers. Van pool is also slowly recovering. And as more people return to offices in Denver and other places, that will continue to recover. Something to highlight, I guess, on the project update side, we are starting our fall 2021 public process for service changes. And that process will begin on June 21st and will go to June 28th. So we're looking for public comment and feedback on a number of changes that include for Route 11, that goes from our downtown terminal to Pikes Peak Community College on the south and World Arena. Improve our on-time performance on Saturdays and Sundays through additional bus service. On Route 22, that's a route that serves southeast Colorado Springs. It's a north-south route that runs between Academy and Powers. And we'll be adding proposing to add Sunday service there. Route 23 extends from the Citadel up to the Powers corridor along Tut, and also proposing to add Sunday service on that route. And Route 37 is the new route that just starts on Monday that's going to serve the new Amazon facility out on the Airport Business Park and the airport terminal as well. And we're proposing starting in September. So we're starting the initial service on Monday, but starting in September, we would provide regular bus service all day long, and along with ADA service. And that's something that was commented to us by our passenger advisory committee, and something that was discussed at length by our city council. So I think that is something that's very welcome. And then finally, we're proposing to start a downtown shuttle, a downtown Colorado Springs shuttle, next spring by Memorial Day, possibly as early as April 24th. That would be a new service that's would be funded with transit ARPA money. And the reason it's on the fall service change instead of spring is that we will need to install new bus stops in the downtown area, and that work will need to start soon. So it would be completed in time for that new service to start in the spring. So we're going to have that public input starting here very soon. So we always look at those, the public input that we get as part of that process is looking to implement those service changes. We are doing it virtually again this year. What we found is when we did it virtually last year in the spring, we had a lot more public participation than if we held a physical meeting. So it was very successful, and we're going to do it that way again and see how it goes. With that, be happy to answer further questions.
All right, any questions? Greg?
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move into some good discussion on our next agenda item, 10B, the PPRTA 3 matrix. And I think Rick's going to lead us in that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll take about 1 minute to just give a little bit of history, and then I'll turn it over to Gail Sturtevant. The matrix has been a growing list of issues, topics, rules, guidelines to discuss relative to for the board direction for the PPRTA ballot measure that the board has decided to go back to the voters to ask for another 10 years in November of 22 for the 10 years that would start in January of 25. This list started to be developed last summer. There were a couple of CAC meetings and board meetings. The board decided to refer the list to the member government staffs headed by Gail Sturtevant and Jennifer Irvin. That they did take it and work with it. At the CAC's May 5th meeting, the member government staffs first made their presentation as regarding their recommendations. The CAC did not finish its review until their June meeting, and that's what's in your packet is a summary of that. And broad brush description, the CAC and agrees with the PPRTA member government staffs on virtually everything on the list except for 4A, 4B, and number 16. And Gail will cover all of that.
Thank you, Rick. Gail Sturtevant, City of Colorado Springs. bear with me just a moment. We're going to share screen so we can get more detailed and actually going to take some notes as we go through. Just a moment, this should be switching to the matrix. Okay, I just, there, perfect, thank you. All right, so bear with me, I'm going to summarize just what the questions were asked, and then a couple of these in particular, this first one, we're going to go through in detail, because there's a lot of content in here that are basis of staff's responses in the first, are in subsequent questions that were posed. And question number one for programs fund is whether or not it should be left to each entity to request program funds, whether it should give priority to name projects over program funds, whether we should consider a regional grant match program fund or consider a regional, federal, and state companion project fund. I'm going to skip down to Steph's recommendation on this items, and then if there's an opportunity, if CAC would like to provide some additional information, they can do so. Staff's recommendation started off by leaving the opportunity for each entity to request A-list program funds. Similar to A-list projects, entities should present an initial budget for the programs fund to the CAC and board. These programs will be allocated annually through the budget cycle. Changes to these budgets would need to be justified by the requesting entity. Moving on to the next part of that, capital programs should be included in the ballot in an alphabetical order with the projects. By default, capital programs and projects are prioritized through the annual budget process. Entities requesting capital program funds must determine or must demonstrate a capital improvements program to complete A-list projects in addition to their capital programs. And C and D kind of get answered a little bit together, but I'll start off with C. Staff is recommending that we include a new program titled the State or Federal Discretionary Grant Match Fund Program on the A-list. This program could be available to all member governments and could be used for local matching funds for projects. Consider either nominal or no initial budgeted funds. Board can approve budget or budget amendment, provide match funding. We would recommend establishing a policy to obtain state or federal discretionary grant match fund programs consideration when applying for a grant. And why this is important is when you apply for these grants, there must be a letter stating what that local funding source is coming from. So that's really, the local government would have to come and get some approval from the board beforehand and have it included in the letter. Those projects that have grant funding could be considered child projects under the grant match fund program, and therefore they would be incorporated to the A-list by way of the program. The state and federal discretion and grant match program could also be used to fulfill local match requirements for discretionary grants awarded by the state of Colorado, which currently don't exist that I'm aware of, but there's programs that are pending under, that could come out as a result of Senate Bill 260. Or the federal government, which we have infra grants, which the board has heard previously, and then we'll talk about a raise grant, just to give you some examples. Or future grant opportunities that result from a federally declared disaster. And this is really meant, it could be used again by any member government, but the scenarios we've used to kind of show where there's a need, that if there was, for example, a natural disaster, whether it be a wildfire or a flood, where some critical infrastructure was taken out, that's eligible for FEMA grant funding, that there is still a significant burden put on that local government to provide the matching piece. And depending on the nature of the disaster and what the specific program is under FEMA, you know, that there's an opportunity, there's a huge burden, like I said, on that local government. There's an opportunity for those member governments to come back to the board to ask for some grant match funding. Do we want to make sure this clear that this program is not intended to provide local match for revenue allocations that are administered by PPACG? So if you're familiar with PPACG, is that this federal allocations come down, we go through the TIP process, compete for that. That would still be on the member governments to come up with those match funds. If the proposed grant project is not on the A list, but is included on the B list, then a majority vote is necessary to plan for matching funds for the state and federal awarded grants. If the proposed grant project is not on either the A list or the B list, then we are recommending a supermajority vote, which we would defer to the board how they wanted to define that. Would be necessary to have approval to award those local matching funds. When the state or federal discretionary grant match fund program is included on the A list in the ballot, language may be added to the eligibility for this program will be set forth in either the establishing IGA or by board resolution to provide transparency for the electorate. And the last response for this big one, and I warned you guys this was where most of the content was, that it had to be the basis. Staff is not recommending a CDOT companion project program. However, member governments could use other programs if available and relevant to partner with CDOT or other entities to incorporate betterments deemed appropriate for this jurisdiction with the project led by CDOT or other entity. So that was a lot of content there. I tried to provide a little context through there. There's been a lot of discussion internally with staff and some consultation on this. We'd like to open it up for discussion or questions.
I'll start out by saying this is quite intense, and clearly I'm coming in on it. This is I really look to our fellow board members for some observation and recommendations as far as how we move forward. This is going to be a long list, 16 items, and clearly, again, it's my opinion. We're looking to vote today to approve these things because of the problems with 4A, B, and 16. Do we look at each point individually, vote that way, or do we vote? Do we amend the agenda to not vote on this today? Those are the big, broad questions. I'm looking for input from all the other board members on that, as well as this individual. The first one, this is the first one,
Right.
16.
Yeah, and this is the building block for most of the other responses, so it's important. I will mention that the CAC voted on each of these 4 points individually, and you can see the results there in red, and I could go up there, and I'm sure if Mr. Godfrey would like to add on there. It may be worthwhile if there's questions that kind of come up why we did or did not recommend certain items that may provide some additional context that may be helpful before you make that decision,
So
Mr.
here we
Chair.
go, board members. Floor is open. Use a group of them. Yeah, go ahead.
This is Jim Godfrey, Chair of the CAC. I'd just like, just for clarity, on item 1C about the majority vote. Part of the suggestion was how to construct a majority vote, whether that was 2/3 or 3/4. We agreed with the concept of majority vote, but did not set any criteria for what constituted that majority vote. And have no recommendation without further guidance.
All right. Jeffrey, Jason.
I did, just from a procedural standpoint, a suggestion for the board's consideration. It is listed obviously as an approval item. Given that there are some items that I think bear further detailed discussion where there's been a bit of a divergence between the CAC and the staff recommendation, and the fact that several of these actually may have implications for ballot content or IGA language, which might bear some further legal discussion with the board. I'm not sure that approval is the appropriate action. I think it might be an acceptance and direction to staff and consultants, including myself, to come back to the board with additional discussion on some of these. That's just my 2 cents. So
No, that's what we look to you for. Thank you.
Well, and let me ask, this is Councilmember Williams. How many of our board are in this meeting today?
5 of us. 5 out of 9.
Yeah, so I know Commissioner Geisler is testifying in front of the Congressional Redistricting Commission that I stepped away from for a minute to do.
Right.
But I wouldn't want to make, I agree, this is not the time to actually go with an approval of this is where we're going, because I think this is an important thing for more than a bare majority of the board to be part of the discussion about.
Roger that.
I do like, I'll just comment generally now, I like the moving in the direction of flexibility, but we still have to ensure that we fulfill the promises to the voters, because so I agree that moving something out of the A list, probably not something we want to do, because then we're telling folks, well, it may get done or it might not. And so I think we do need that assurance to be able to say, this is going to be there, but the ability to move something in, so to leave the room where we could move something in is useful. And I think we've seen, I know we had a B list bridge that the city moved into its A list with the approval of this board because the bridge was failing. And so, but that's because we had a category it could fit in. So creating that possibility, I think, does make sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. With that said, and what Jennifer's talking about, the acceptance versus the approval. Well, so do we want to go through the discussions and potentially postponing the vote or amending so that we don't, do we need to amend for today's agenda so that we don't have a, we just want to postpone the procedural.
I think Robert's rules, anybody else who's an expert can jump in. I think even if the action on the agenda shows approve, you can always postpone, and that's within Robert's rules, which the PPRTA board follows. My suggestion in following up on Councilmember Williams' statement is it would probably be best to have the more in-depth discussion when you have more board members present.
Yes, I agree. Do we want to go through the other 15 items, or do we want to make it, and do we need to make a motion to postpone this?
So this is Commissioner Williams. What I would propose is we do two things. We did talk about the need to do a combined CAC and board meeting. Maybe we can get that on the schedule for August or September by the time you get everybody together. And then I would propose that we postpone this item and try to get it discussed at the July meeting when we have a larger quorum. I expected Commissioner Gonzalez to be here, but he is not. So I would prefer to postpone it until July, because I think that we have such a lot, we have so much knowledge on the board and so many excellent opinions that I think we would again go through the same opinions we might express today. It's probably something we can all read today or read and then be prepared with comments in July, because I know that once sometimes someone says something and I either want to respond to it as opposition, or I might say, oh yeah, you're right. Maybe I do agree with that. So that's just an example.
This Councilmember Williams, so Rick, do you think we need a formal motion to postpone consideration to the July meeting?
Yes, please.
Then without wanting to preclude any other presentation from staff, if there is something more on these, I do think we're in a better situation to have this, to be able to review it, and then to have the fuller discussion at our July meeting. And so, Mr. President, I would move that we postpone action on this item until our July meeting.
All right, I hear a motion to postpone agenda item 10B. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Williams, I would like to second that.
I have a motion and a second. I do for discussion. I would like to see if Gail or anyone else wants to cover any of the other items, or Rick, did you want to go over item 4AB and 16 at this time, or do you want to just wait on that? Wait. Okay. Any other discussion? I hear none. All in favor of postponing item 10B? Vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. The motion has passed to postpone item 10B. Thank you. All right. Work through that one. Item 10C, City of Colorado Springs monthly change order. It's like Jim is coming up to the podium. No, I'm moving. I was wondering. Getting out of a lot of fire.
This is Gail Sertman, City of Colorado Springs. Jessica and I are going to switch screen sharing. So you have the opportunity to look at, but the change order log is presented in your packets for information, and I'm available for questions.
Are there any questions on the change orders? All right. With that said, we'll move to item 10 Delta.
This is also a City of Colorado Springs item, Gail Stewart event. The city is coming to the board to ask for your letter of support for what's referred to as a RAISE grant, which is the Rebuilding America Infrastructure and Sustainability and Equity Grant. It's what replaced BUILD, of those of you who are familiar with that in the past, to help fund part of the UPR bridges over Fontenaro. As you recall, the mainline bridge is an A-list project. The siding bridge is currently a B-list project, but is being designed concurrently with emergency bridge funds today. We have been looking at the construction in the future needing to be all done at the same time, because the siding bridge construction is going to be needed to support rail traffic while the mainline bridge is out of service for replacement. We've been looking for opportunities to help support PPRTA funding for this, and feel like this RAISE grant opportunity is the first of probably a couple of chances to get some federal funding to help support that project. With the city's application, we're going to be requesting somewhere in the range between $15 and $19 million to help cover the majority of the construction costs. PPRTA would continue to cover the cost of the design efforts, and if we were successful with the grant, the environmental or the NEPA process that would have to go along with it, in addition to real estate activities. PPRTA would also help cover the local fund portion of this, which could be done under the A-list project that exists today. And then the rest of the construction costs would be picked up by the grant if we're successful. The city's grant application is due here July 12th. Even if we were successful with this at this particular opportunity, would not expect a schedule change for the project, or if so, it would be very minimal, like within a month or two, because we have a little bit of schedule flow to get that NEPA process caught up and still hit construction in the end of 2023. So with that, the city is asking for a letter of support for the PPRTA board, and we are available to answer questions about the project or the grant application.
Are there any questions? No questions. I call for a motion to approve the RAISE grant application.
Ms. Wayne, I'll move approval.
This is Commissioner Williams. I will second.
I hear a second. Open for discussion. There is none. With that, I call for a voice vote. All in favor of approving the RAISE grant application, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There is none. The motion has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is information item by Rick on item 10 Echo. Quarterly report.
These are the quarterly reports from the 5-member governments as is required in the comprehensive IGAs that each of the 5-member governments have agreed to with PPRTA board. I can attempt to answer any questions, or we can, if they're too detailed, I can ask the staff or applicable staff member to address them. Information only. Any questions?
All right, I hear none. We'll move on to item 11, Alpha, legislative reports.
Dan Jablan, are you on? Then Jennifer, your turn.
All right, I will do my best to pretend that I'm going to do as good a job as Dan would have done. The legislative session did finally end last night, probably in the middle of the night. I did not track when they actually gavelled out, and that's probably why Dan's not here. He's probably still sleeping off the effects of the end of session. I know that a number of bills sort of got crammed through at the last minute. I've heard that from Commissioner Williams that some additional language in the nature of 50 pages was added to a bill that was not even on my radar that may have some implications for the PPRTA related to the Air Quality Control Commission. So I'll be looking at that after I leave this meeting.
It's Senate Bill 200, just so you know, Senate Bill 200.
Thank you. I'm going to write that down as soon as I stop talking. The bill that we were tracking, which is sort of the larger transportation, quality, air quality control, all of those issues bill did pass and was signed by the Senate president. I know it hasn't gone to the governor yet that I'm aware of, but the governor was fully supportive. So I have no doubt that it's going to become law. There were a number of revisions to that, none of which I think were particularly helpful to the PPRTA, unfortunately. I don't know that any of them are particularly hurtful, but it's in substantially the same form as it applies to the PPRTA as it was when we talked about it last month. Unfortunately, we did try to work through Representative Gray to have some amendments made to that bill to protect the PPRTA. And the matter, as far as I understand it, and Dan was more in communication with Representative Gray, was sort of taken out of the sponsor's hands, as I understood it, and was in the governor's office at one point. And so we were sort of given the word that there was nothing that could really be done. So unfortunately, I don't have good results to report to you there, but we will be diving deep into the provisions as finally passed, coming back with any concerns and potential ramifications as it may impact the PPRTA and its projects as part of the PPACG's lists and plans going forward. And Andy, I know, has been tracking it just as closely as I have, so I will turn the floor over to you.
That's a good summary, and I don't think I have a whole lot more to cover. This sort of spills over into the next agenda item about the rulemaking tracking process with AQCC. There's 2 rulemaking efforts that'll be underway. One got started last month with the employer trip reduction program, and the other one that we're waiting for that was tied to Senate Bill 260 is the emissions/vehicle miles reduction rulemaking process. That hasn't started yet, but we expect that'll start soon with AQCC. Maybe as soon as this month in June. I'll find out at a meeting at 4 o'clock if that's going to be moving sooner rather than later. So we're all tracking that. We don't know what those reduction targets will be yet, and that's where it might impact PPRTA projects and other projects if we have to reduce our miles of travel throughout our region by a certain amount that we don't know yet. So more to come on that.
All right, any other questions? That said, I'll call for a motion to approve the legislative reports.
So this is Commissioner Williams. I'll move to approve the legislative report.
Looking for a second. Here, yeah.
I'll second John Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the legislative report, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. I hear none. The motion has been approved. Well, next we'll move to 11 Bravo. Discuss the proposed air quality control commission rules and potential impact.
Oh,
So this goes really hand in hand with the last agenda item and Senate Bill 260. I think as we discussed at our last meeting, a lot of the heavy lifting from 260, which is amazing that I'm saying that since the bill is like 200 pages long, but a lot of the heavy lifting has basically been punted to rulemaking. Some of that rulemaking, as Andy said, has already started. The Air Quality Control Commission rulemaking is set to start in the coming months. And so the question that we have for the board, given the potential impacts on PPRTA projects, is whether if you want to consider authorizing us to sort of apply for, designate ourselves as party status during that rulemaking. What that means from a practical standpoint is that persons that are granted party status have the right to make individual presentations, either orally or in writing or both, during the rulemaking hearings, to make appropriate objections and to cross-examine witnesses. So it gives the PPRTA a bit more rights if we want to make any of those objections during rulemaking, but we have to apply for party status first.
So this is Wayne. I absolutely believe we need to.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams. Any other questions or comments?
Well, following up, this is Vice Chairman Williams. So the reason why I recommended this earlier in our pre-board meeting was the Air Quality Control Commission is looking at some stuff that might affect our projects, but also affect transportation. So we absolutely have to keep an eye on it to make sure that, you know, in worst case scenario, what if our projects have to be delayed because we don't have enough greenhouse gas credits or something? The Air Quality Control Commission is an air quality control commission, whereas CDOT can make recommendations to them about the rules. Sometimes CDOT made a recommendation and the Air Quality Control Commission didn't accept that recommendation when it came to the employee trip reduction program, and it kind of hit us as a surprise. And so I'm just recommending specifically on the transportation part of the Air Quality Control Commission, we need to keep a close eye on it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Rick.
I guess a procedural question for those who know more about the bill and the timetable. It's probably for Andy or Jennifer. Once we register as a stakeholder or a party status, what are we authorized to say on behalf of the board?
Well, we're authorized to make any objections or comments, but I mean, I think any official communication from the board would have to come back through this board before we made any official comments. It'll just give us that ability. We've been monitoring and we'll continue to monitor just as a monitoring party, if you will, the goings on in all the rulemakings, and we'll be doing that in the Air Quality Control Commission as well. So when we have more of a timeline, it might make sense to have some delegation from the board for those official communications, so that if we need to make a decision on the fly, that we have that authority. But I'm not sure that we need that today, since we don't really know what the process is going to look like. At least at this point, we don't.
Yeah, we'll mention as far as timing, I know the employer trip reduction portion that's gotten started last month. That's expected to be approved by the Air Quality Commission in August. So we have one more board meeting in July, and then two in the second meeting, one in August. So we may have to be a little bit nimble as far as communication and getting direction back from the board.
I too agree with the concept that we need to apply for party status. So, any other questions, comments?
Well, this is listed as an approval item, so this is Wayne. I would move that we approve. I would move that we submit a request for party status in front of the Air Quality Control Commission.
Right, I think, yes, so I am asking for a motion to apply for party status.
And that was my motion.
That was your motion. I look for a second.
I'll second John Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion to apply for party status in a second. All discussion? Okay, I hear none. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? There is none. The motion to apply for party status is approved. All right, that's item number 11. Moving to item number 12. And here we go. Wow. PPRTA member announcements. So I can start with Mayor Carpenter.
Nothing new in Rama at this time.
All right, looking around the table, out in the team plan out there. We'll start with the mayor from Manatee.
Well, thank you. We've begun the selective demolition of the old property at Hiawatha Gardens. That's going to be our transportation hub. We are using PPRTA money for that. That was approved by this board a month ago. So we very much appreciate that. We're moving forward, and we are elbow to elbow in people now. So with this work can't get done fast enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll move to Council Member Williams.
Nothing further at this time.
Thank you. I'll move to the Vice Chair, Commissioner Williams.
I have nothing further either.
All right, thank you. My only comments is I'm really happy to be here in person. It is, of course, only my second meeting, but I look forward to holding many more here. As we go around the table, I'll start down with Rick and Jennifer.
Sorry, I mean, I'm not a member government, but since I sent an email immediately, Commissioner Williams, I understand that Senate Bill 200 was actually killed. And the concepts that you're talking about were added to House Bill 1266, which did pass. But my intel tells me there's talk of seeking a veto from the governor. So I will send an update on anything else I learn.
Okay.
As soon as I have it.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, she is.
But she was there.
Yolanda, are you out there?
I am.
Well, welcome.
I have nothing to report, and you're coming in really low. I can barely hear you.
Okay. Is that any better? No. Sorry, we will correct this our first time back, so we will get all of that corrected for our next person.
Yeah, because I can hear everybody else just fine except for you.
I normally don't have that problem. All right, anyone else? Okay, with that said, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Here at 15:02.
I move we adjourn. John Graham.
And this is Wayne, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed to adjournment? No, there are none. We are adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, staff, for making this hybrid model work. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Ditto.
Yes.
Very much so.
Is that what you were looking at? Yeah. I tried. I thought Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, that's actually fine. Yeah, yeah. We got a new one. Dave. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah. No.